Interestingly, I have heard some complementarians use the creation account to support the idea of a natural created order that endorses male headship. I find that fascinating and flabbergasting, and I reject the premise entirely. Perhaps the greatest challenge to a doctrine of patriarchy is that there's simply no evidence of hierarchy in the original created order. No complementarity, no hierarchy, no headship, just equality. Genesis 1 and 2 are indelibly egalitarian. Let's look at the original created order as we read from Genesis 1, when a triune God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over every living thing that moves on the earth." So who was to be fruitful and multiply, the man or the woman? Both. In order to accomplish this, they must work together. Who was to fill the earth, subdue it, and rule over it, man or woman? Both. Man and woman, as co-regents, equally filling, subduing, and ruling. God didn't pull Adam aside and tell him to rule over the beasts and the woman. God gave these instructions to them, him and her, with no sub-commandments about one of them being slightly more in charge than the other. They were to be co-regents. Okay, but who was created in the image of God, man or woman? Both. We are each the imago Dei. We are together the imago Dei. In Genesis 2, the creation story is retold, and God notes that it is not good for a man to be alone. All the previously formed creatures were beneath him, part of his dominion, but not his equal. So God formed woman to be a suitable helper or helpmeet. Now, when we think of helper, we think, oh, that's cute. Eve is going to help Adam. How sweet, he gets a ministry assistant. But the Hebrew word for helper is ezer, which is perhaps most memorable as a compound word, Ebenezer. Now, my first thought about Ebenezer is about Scrooge, but my second thought is from the hymn. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I've come. And I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Ebenezer is a compound word of eben, meaning stone, and ezer, meaning help. So literally, stone of help, which is a reference to a memorial stone that Samuel raised in 1 Samuel 7 after God rescued or helped his people when, quote, "The Lord thundered with a great thunder on that day against the Philistines and confused them so that they were routed before Israel." Jehovah God was their ezer. He was not a cute or sweet or submissive. He thundered with a great thunder. The phrase in Genesis 2 for suitable helper is ezer kenegdo. Ezer means to arrive in strength or to come to one's aid, to rescue as a savior. Clearly, Eve was not to be Adam's savior, but she arrived with thunderous strength, not cloying acquiescence. Kenegdo means fitting or appropriate, so the phrase ezer kenegdo would indicate that the woman arrived with an appropriate or suitable strength for the partnership. Outside of Genesis 2, ezer is used 19 other times in the Hebrew Bible. 16 of those refer to the arrival of help from God. And God is never a subordinate helper. So Eve was certainly a helper, but more in the way that we would perhaps use the term partner. Eve was not formed to be submissive or subordinate. She didn't arrive as an assistant manager or an assistant to the manager, but a co-manager. Not beneath man like the beast, for they were not suitable, but formed from the same substance, after his own kind, equally dignified, bone of his bones and flesh of his flesh. So in the original creation, woman is equal. The first evidence of patriarchy does not occur until after the fall. As a consequence of sin, man is subjugated to labor and toil in the soil, while woman is subjugated to man. Interesting that the man is beholden to serve the dust from which he was created, and the woman is beholden to the man from which she was created. Complementarianism is the result of a cursed world and is a deviation from the original order. When we promote patriarchy, we propagate the cursed order, not the created order. It's important to note that we're not making any argument for the superiority of either gender. We're not making a case for women to rule over men. We are not saying that women shouldn't submit to men. They should. But we are saying that they shouldn't be the only ones submitting. We're trying to return to a better way of mutual submission, co-regency, and full equality, helping one another, which I believe is what God intended and what Christ's kingdom ministry is trying to restore.